Fellas, we just got announced that Jon Jones is not going to be fighting at UFC 295, and there's been a lot of talk about the heavyweight division. When does Jon Jones return? Is Stipe going to retire? Aspinall Pavlovich, who wins? So I thought, it's the perfect time to matchmake the heavyweight division, considering there's a lot of fighters in the division that haven't been booked yet. So we're going to be matchmaking the heavyweight division. I think all of these make sense. Let me know your thoughts. Let me know if you agree with these matchmaking ideas. But the first fight is Jones and Stipe. This is a tricky one because I feel like the UFC are going to book Jones versus Stipe again, but simultaneously they've got Aspinall versus Pavlovich for the vacant heavyweight, the interim belt. So I think these two, if they're gonna fight, first of all, I think they're probably gonna retire. If not, and if they're both gonna fight each other, then they're gonna have to fight mid 2024. Once they've fought and then they retire, I believe the interim belt that Aspinall and Pavlovich fought for will then become the real belt, and then they can go on to fight other fights. But it's a bit unfair on Aspinall and Pavlovich, but I just think that's going to happen. Unless Jon Jones vacates the belt and then Aspinall Pavlovich becomes for the actual undisputed heavyweight belt. But assuming that Jones isn't going to retire, I think we do Jones versus Stipe mid-2024. That's if Stipe wants to stay around that long, but that's probably when Jones is going to be healed, because we got told that he's going to be out for around 8 months. I don't think he's going to be ready for like UFC 300, which is going to be like March, April time. I don't think he's going to be ready then. I reckon he'll be back in like May, maybe earliest April. But yeah, Jones versus Stipe, if it's going to happen, have it mid-2024. Both of them retire, and the winner of Aspinall Pavlovich instantly gets booked, or not booked, but instantly gets promoted as the heavyweight champion of the world. It makes the more sense. So yeah, I'm just going to quickly get off that matchup. Then we've got Cyril Gane versus Jelton Almeida. Ha, Cyril Gane, it backfired. Cyril Gane, I'm glad he's not fighting for the belt. I'm glad he's not fighting higher above. And now he's just walked into a nightmare matchup in Jelton Almeida. Now this is assuming obviously that Almeida beats Lewis. MMA, anything can happen, but I'm 99% sure Almeida's gonna ragdoll Lewis on the ground, unfortunately. But Cyril Gane, you shouldn't have done that. He could have had a fun fight with Tom Aspinall that was somewhat winnable, and he decided, you know what, don't want to fight Aspinall. He's got somewhat of a grappling threat. Now he's got to face Jelton Almeida, who is a way bigger grappling threat than Aspinall. And he's, like I said, this is assuming he beats Derek Lewis, but this is the only fight that makes sense. Who else can Cyril Gane fight? He's already beaten Alexander Volkov. Curtis Blades is going to be out for a while. I don't think Blades versus Gane is the correct move, considering that Blades lost to Almeida, or not, didn't lose to Almeida, but he lost to Pavlovich. It's got to be Almeida versus Gane. It's got to be Almeida versus Gane. There's no one else for Gane to fight. This is what you get. This is what you get when you demand too much. You 2 title fight losses, and he's already asking for a higher ranked opponent than Aspinall. This is the same thing that happened to Tatu Ivaza. I remember after UFC London, the Volkov Aspinall card, Tatu Ivaza didn't want to fight Aspinall. He wanted to fight people ranked above him, and now he's on a 3-fight losing streak. And Cyril Gane's done the same thing, and now he's got to fight Almeida, which is a way worse fight. But yeah, this has to happen. If Almeida beats Derek Lewis, he needs the big step up in competition. There's no point rebooking him against Blades. Let's just give him Cyril Gane immediately. I've got the records on screen as well, so you can see he's won 2 out of his last 3 as Cyril Gane, but he's got a win over Tatu Ivaza and Spivak, and he's lost to Jones and Garnu. And he can't fight Aspinall anymore because Aspinall's fighting, so the only other option is Almeida, who's going to be on a 3-fight losing streak, most likely by finish in all 3 of them as well. Nightmare matchup for Cyril Gane, unfortunately. Then we've got Volkov. I think we do Volkov versus Blades too. He's kind of gone under the radar in the heavyweight division. No one's really talking about him. Obviously, he got kind of embarrassed. Well, not embarrassed, but he got dominated by Aspinall last year. And since the Aspinall fight, he's been on a bit of a streak. He beat Rosen, he beat Romanov. He went out there and beat Tatu Ivaza as well, which I knew was going to happen. I already said this. Tatu Ivaza, I'll talk about him in a minute, but he only tends to do well against short, fat heavyweights, does Tatu Ivaza. Never really tends to do well against people his own size, but I think Volkov versus Blades is the move to make. Volkov on a 3-fight finishing streak. Now, this fight obviously has happened before. Curtis Blades, I think he won by decision. In his last 3, Blades got a win over Chris Daukaus, which isn't that impressive because Chris Daukaus, I mean, it's only a matter of time before he gets cut from the UFC, let's be completely honest. He's got a win over Aspinall, but it's not really a win because Aspinall got injured in like, what, 15 seconds, and then he got absolutely steamrolled by Pavlovich. Yeah, if we look at this on paper, it doesn't really make sense for Volkov to fight Blades, but the fact that he's lost to Curtis Blades, it's a chance for him to rewrite that loss. If Volkov can beat Blades, I think he can either be a replacement for like a title fight, so if there's another title fight, Volkov can be the backup for it. If not, I think he needs a #1 contender fight against maybe the loser of Aspinall Pavlovich, I guess, because if he's on a 4-fight losing streak from there, I guess that makes sense. I was originally going to put him against the loser of Aspinall Pavlovich, but it doesn't really make sense. And if Blades beats Volkov, then I guess he can go back to fighting people like Almeida, Garn, the loser of, well, I don't know, just people around top 5, but he just got slept by Pavlovich. He needs a bit of an easier fight, not really an easier fight, but a fight that's not going to be such high pressure. He can think more. It's a guy that he's already beat, Alexander Volkov. Then we've got the guy that Volkov just steamrolled, Teivasa. He's on a 3-fight losing streak now. Teivasa, I said this in my prediction video for UFC 293, he only does well against short, fat heavyweights like Derek Lewis. Every time he faces someone with some athleticism or genuine tall fighters with striking ability, he crumbles. It happened with Ciryl Gane, he got finished. Happened with Pavlovich, he got finished. Happened with Volkov, he got finished. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, all by way of finish. I think the best fight for him is a Marcin Tabura. Maybe it's a fight night headliner. Maybe not even that, because I'm not sure Marcin Tabura can be a headliner for a fight night anymore. Tabura, he'd won 7 out of his last 8 going into the Aspinall fight. Beat Blagor Ivanov, who's not even in the UFC anymore. And he beat Romanov, which is a decent win. Obviously got slept by Aspinall. I think it's a good fight for both of them, because Marcin Tabura, he's fought on a fight night main event. People are somewhat familiar with him now, and Teivasa is obviously a much easier fight than Aspinall. Teivasa has only been fighting kind of the best in the UFC heavyweight division. He needs a bit of a step down against a short, fat heavyweight, which he tends to do well against. I think it's a perfect matchup. If Teivasa loses to Tabura, I think Teivasa must have been fraud checked. If you lose to Marcin Tabura, he has to be fraud checked. The hype around Teivasa is already gone, but especially if he loses to Tabura, it's completely gone. If Tabura can beat Teivasa, I feel like Tabura is going to turn into the gatekeeper of the division, kind of like the Rosen strike. Whereas if you beat Tabura, obviously you're well enough for the heavyweight division, and if you lose to Tabura, get out of the division. But Tabura is a tricky fighter. He's like, I don't know, he's just a really tricky fighter. He's not good, but he's not bad at the same time. Well, he's not great, but he's not bad at the same time. I guess he's just good. But yeah, this needs to happen. Fight night co-main event, I'm not bothered which. And then the final matchup, Sergey Spivak versus Rosenstrike. By the way, how do you pronounce his name? Is it Rosenstruck or Rosenstrike? I've always called him Rosenstrike, but apparently that's not how you say it. Either way, we've got Dobby versus Rosenstrike. Why does Sergey Spivak look like that? He looks a bit weird, doesn't he? Like, that's literally the face that he pulled when he was fighting Ciryl Gane in Paris. Either way, Spivak coming off a bit of an embarrassing loss against Ciryl Gane. What was that, Spivak? Rosenstrike, he's kind of the gatekeeper of the division. He's got knockout power. Is it kind of like that? I don't know. I see this matchup as kind of like the battle of the mid. Yeah, Spivak versus Rosenstrike. Originally, I was going to do Spivak versus Alexander Romanov because I thought that would be a cool grappling match. But now that I think of it, listen, he's got a win over Derek Lewis. He was on a 3-fight winning streak before the Ciryl Gane loss. I think giving him Romanov would have been too big of a step down. I think a Ciryl Gane, obviously, he's only lost to Ciryl Gane. I think Rosenstrike's a good matchup to get him back in the winning streak. If he wins that fight, that is. Rosenstrike, I don't know, he's a bit of a weird guy. He loses to the good fighters and beats the bums. Like I said, his last win was Chris Daukaus, which isn't impressive. Chris Daukaus is like a crash dummy. He's a middleweight who, just because he's fat, he made it to heavyweight. Obviously lost to Almeida as well, so I think it's an easier matchup for Rosenstrike than Almeida was. Spivak, give him Rosen. Yeah, I think this is a perfect, I don't know, fight night main event maybe. Maybe not even that, because I'm not sure these two can headline a fight night main event. Neither of them really have star power. Maybe sticking on like the prelims of a pay-per-view. But yeah, I think these two would be a bit of a good fight. And that's me matchmaking the UFC heavyweight division. It's as easy as that. It's as easy as that. If this all happens, goes through, I don't see any problems. I wouldn't be bothered with any of these matchups. They all make sense. Let's do this in the heavyweight division. Yeah, it's impossible to disagree with this, but if you somehow find a way to disagree, let me know. But yeah, thank you for watching.